You know what? If wearing a tank top and short shorts makes me a hoe, then I guess I'm a hoe. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, hi, my name is Zhariya Smith, and I typically make commentary videos just like this one. So, if you guys happen to like that, or you just happen to like my gorgeous face, make sure to subscribe down below and hit the notification bell to get notified every single time I post, which happens to be on Mondays and on Fridays. My intros have been like very long recently, so I'm gonna try to speed through this, but today's candle is Southern Peach Tea. Today's video topic is about society's obsession with purity, specifically with women's purity. The reason why I'm making this video today, this is a very random video to make specifically for a Friday upload. So I'm currently taking film history at the moment, and right now we're learning about we just learned about the fallen women trope films that happened in the 1920s and the 1930s, and it was talking about how society's obsession with purity and about women, being extremely innocent, and that got me thinking about today's times. In my discussion post, I basically had to mirror reactions to fallen women movies, why they were made in the first place, and then give a modern example of society having an uproar over women being sexual. So obviously I picked the Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion song WAP, because why wouldn't I? But this is a bigger topic, and that's what I'm talking about. Roll title card. I'm going to rub in the fact that I'm a film student minor for as long as I possibly can. So in my class we learned about the fallen women films that happened, and you might be asking me, Zhariya, what is a fallen woman? And the fallen woman, trope, term, archetype, if you will, is a term that's used to describe a woman who has lost her innocence. Kind of like a falling from grace, falling from the big G-man. And in 19th century Britain, specifically meant closely associating to the loss of a woman's chastity, the chastity belts. So it's basically a woman, having relations when she's not supposed to, not with her husband, rather. And it's very closely tied to female promiscuity. Promiscuity? Is that how you pronounce it? Promiscuous girl, wherever you are, that vibe, that song. Promiscuity. Yeah. But its use, was seen as women are supposed to be, socially and morally acceptable. Being a fallen woman is not that. And this is mostly, women's sexuality and experiences were only supposed to be exclusive to their marriage. If they weren't married, then they were not to be throwing it back on the street. Imagine a Victorian woman just twerking. It's basically under the assumption that women are supposed to be under the control of men, and if they're not being controlled by men, then she must be a witch or crazy. We see in a lot of the movies that I watch. Specifically, there was a movie that my professor mentioned, was called Babyface by Alfred Green. Now this movie was made as a kind of not a pro-sex work movie, but one of the main characters becomes a lady of the night, a prostitute, and a man that she talks to literally tells her yes, exploit men, use men to your advantage to get through life. It's such a great scene, and I can put in a clip.
A woman young, beautiful like you can get anything she wants in the world because you have power over men. But you must use men, not let them use you. Nietzsche says, all life, no matter how we idealize it, is nothing more nor less than exploitation. That's what I'm telling you. Exploit yourself. Go to some big city where you will find opportunities. Use men. Be strong, defiant. Use men to get the things you want.
This film was so great. I enjoyed it, the, pre-edited version. After it being released, it had to get heavily censored in order to be played, because people were like, oh, you're promoting work, you're promoting prostitution, and her having sex with multiple men, and that's so wrong and so horrible. So what's kind of the history, or what's, deeper dive into the fallen women trope. And fallen women, the trope has also been in literature as well, though I'm not very well versed in the books these days. I do have books. I'm reading this book right now. It's very good. Shout out to Dan. fellow YouTuber. But people were honestly scared back in the day of movies that were showing women, you know, being independent and them like doing whatever they want to do because, you know, society's gotta hate women. We love misogyny, I suppose. But they're basically saying like, oh, these films are being released. We don't want young women to see these movies and think that it's okay to be a prostitute or it's okay to have premarital sex, you know. And due to the response of these movies being released that were more sexually promiscuous, as the folks may say, they started censoring a lot of these movies. And some of these films weren't even facts of films that were originally fallen women films, but end up becoming them because of censorship, which I found to be very, very interesting. Now, to talk really quickly about history around this and why movies like this started coming out was because the Motion Picture Producers and Distributors of America, aka MPPDA, which is a horrible acronym. I feel like they could have come up with something else. But these are the main people censoring the films. Now, their official name has changed. It's something else now. I don't even remember off the top of my head. Specifically, the first president of the MPPDA was Will Hayes. Do you guys remember Will Hayes? If you don't, you need to watch my videos. I'll put a link up here, but I talk about the Hays Code in my video about Shirley Temple, who also was a very prominent actress during this time, though she was, 3, 4, 5 age. But the Hays Code was made, and that was basically like censorship. So people were like, oh my gosh, William Hayes is going to save the film industry. The film industry is so horrible right now. We have baby prostitutes and everything. We're promoting like all these things, and we just need film to be like pure, good, Christian values type energy. And the man was Will Hayes. Now, in 1927, there was a list that was produced. And this was a list that was given to all productions and stuff like that. They were making movies on things that they need to do in order for their movies to like not get heavily censored. And there was a list called the do's and then the be carefuls. So these specific don'ts, like he says, if you do this, your film is going to get edited or it's not going to do well with the audience, was profanity, any licentious or suggestive nudity, illegal traffic in drugs, any interference with sex perversion, white slavery, which is interesting, miscegenation, hygiene and venereal diseases, scenes of actual childbirth, children's sex organs, which I actually agree with, and willful offense to nation, race, and stuff like that. So that was the don'ts. Now, to get into the be carefuls, this is obviously not all of the like list or whatever, but I'm just giving you like a small one for my lecture. But some of the be carefuls was, and this is like stuff that's like, oh, your film's not gonna get like, horrible stuff, but you might want to be like wary about this. Like, don't include a lot of it. We have use of the flag, which is very interesting to me. International relations, use of firearms, brutality, technique of committing murder, sympathy for the criminals, sedation, R word versus unattempted R word. I don't want to use that word because it's triggering to some people. Man and women in bed together, institution of marriage, use of drugs, and excessive lusting or kissing. That's a lot of stuff, but basically these censorships were put in place because they're like, we want to make sure everything's family friendly and nobody's getting corrupted. But, as we can see, people still get corrupted, all the time. But to then go off of that, I want to that was what I learned in my class, and that's like, whatever. But this got me thinking about society's obsession with female purity, or women's purities, women being pure, rather. Now, this is very interesting to me because a couple months ago, I'm not going to put a clip of it because it's very, very gross. But on TikTok, there was a huge debate among a few men on TikTok on whether or not they would still be with their girlfriends if their girlfriend got. And to me, that's like gross of a question to ask because it's like, your girlfriend didn't cheat on you. That's not how that works. But men are like, oh, like she cheated on me. Like maybe she shouldn't have been wearing whatever she was wearing. Or, well, she's a hoe now, so I can't be with her. And like all of this different stuff. And it's like men don't know the anatomy of women. They don't know how women's lady parts work. They just assume certain stuff, So it's very interesting to me. And it made me thinking like, this trend is why so many women are scared of men. But all this to say, like, it's interesting to me how women are so scared of men, and it's because of stuff like that. Crazy psychotic behavior. So this specifically, the thought of like being obsessed with women being virgins and stuff like that, reminds me specifically of the relationship between Nate and Maddie on Euphoria. Nate was very adamant at the fact that he wanted to make sure Maddie was a virgin because, you know, virgins are good. People who have, I mean, at least even once, they're not a virgin anymore. That makes you bad. Suddenly you're tainted and you're no longer good. Like if you've had multiple sexual partners, which, you know, the average I believe is 7, you know, for the average like American, like it's typically 7 sexual partners that you have in your lifetime. But there's a theme that if a woman has had intercourse of any, you know, matter, that she's no longer pure, and that's been around for centuries. We know specifically, we know with religion, with things in the past, like women have not been able to get married if they were not pure. You know, it's the whole shebang. And I think it's interesting how women's bodies are so heavily regulated by everyone but the women's bodies that it is. Because why do you care what another woman is doing with her body? Like, really? What's that about? It's kind of weird. Kind of weird behavior we got going on. All of this to say that I think that's very interesting of society's obsession with specifically women's purity, but then don't really care about, you know, men's purity whatsoever. Because a man can have sex with as many people as he wants to. But women, on the other hand, it's only one person, maybe 2, you know. Like if she got married more than once, then like, you know, she can have as many times as she's married, but like you can't outside of that. Though I will say, is it premarital if you never get married? That's just my thought. But yeah, so now I want to get into, is this panic about women falling and about women losing their innocence like so in effect today? So like I remember specifically with Dr. Arden and Sister Mary Eunice from American Horror Story season 2. Armin is an anime character. But it's interesting to me because after, you know, Sister Mary Eunice, he was obsessed with her purity. He was obsessed with how innocent she was. And like I feel like there's like a thing in people's heads like, oh, she's innocent, but like I want to ruin that for her. And I'm like, that's weird, you know, kind of sus behavior going on. But all this to say that I feel like, is this in effect today? And I would say, I feel like it's not as stigmatized as it was before of, you know, women of the night or being sexually promiscuous as a woman. But I would still say that people get, you know, treated horribly. Like, I remember when I was in, like, I feel like I was a junior in high school. And Cut had released this video, and it was called, like, we asked 100 people how many people they slept with, right? And I specifically remember, like, people being like, oh, well, I'm not a hoe, my mom raised me right. And it's like, your mom can still raise you right and raise you how to respect people, but your mom shouldn't have raised you to shame someone for doing something with their own body. It's kind of gross, sus behavior going on. And there was a lot of people, like, I remember later on in the list, a woman was like, yeah, I've had, you know, intercourse with, I think she said 50 people, but she's like, oh, but I'm not a hoe. That makes you sound like a hoe. And it's like, you're not. Like, we need to stop with that whole situation going on. For me, thinking about, you know, also all this stuff is I think about, you know, the boom of female rappers. I really like female rappers. I was listening to Nicki Minaj literally this morning when I was getting ready. But I think it's interesting because a lot of female rappers, despite all of the hate that they end up getting for being hypersexual, I do think it's interesting that they have found a way to like reclaim their sexuality and basically say like, yeah, I do have, you know, intercourse with men, women, like I do stuff. Like I'm not like a, you know, like I'm not gonna sit here and say like I don't do all these things. Like, you know, it stigmatizes like all this stuff, and I think that by women being more open about their, you know, sexual selves, I don't know, I think it does help, you know, kids growing up like thinking like they don't have to do something if they don't want to. The amount of kids that I went to high school with who had so much religious trauma from being like Catholic or Christian or any of the religions, and then being like, I'll go to like HE double hockey sticks if I, you know, do this thing, and then they would pass judgment on their peers for, you know, having intercourse and all this stuff. And it's like, you don't have to do things that you know, like you can do things if you want to do them, but if you don't, then like don't, you know. I'd say that, like, specifically with Megan Thee Stallion, Nicki Minaj, and Ariana Grande recently with her song 3435 and all this stuff. Like, I think it's really nice to see, like, women talk about, you know, stuff that, like, isn't looking down on other women for literally doing something that human beings were made to do. Also not shaming someone for not, like, it's also important to, like, not shame people who do not have intercourse, because there are people who are asexual or aromantic. They don't want to be with other people, and, like, that's fine, you know. I'd also say that, like, there's sexual dances on TikTok. I love dances on TikTok. Even with fashion trends, like, I remember like, the fact that, like, I wear tank tops, you know, some people are like, oh my god, that's such a hoe for, like, wearing a tank top, or, like, I wear shorts, or, like, I have hoops that can fit. Well, I have bigger ones that I'm not wearing today, but, like, it's like, the bigger the hoop, the bigger the hoe. Like, all this stuff about women's bodies, but, like, is there an equivalent for men? Is there equivalent for men? Like, no, it's just like, oh, that's just what men do. That's just what the boys do. You gotta let boys be boys. But it's like, okay, but if a woman wants to do the things the boys are doing, why is that suddenly something that's so wrong? Why are we hating one side for doing one thing and then hating the other side for doing the same thing, but in different fonts? To me, it's kind of stupid. I think we should let people do whatever they want to do as long as they're not harming other people. That's my stance on any of my videos I talk about. If I'm talking about, you know, Disney adults, or I'm talking about, you know, any different topics, my thought process and my general life motto is, if you're not causing harm to other people, then do whatever you want, because it's your life. And if you're happy, who am I to tell you to not be happy? You know, but yeah. That's my video. This is kind of a short one. I know I typically talk for, like, I typically film for, like, 45 minutes and then cut my videos down to 25 minutes, but this is a quick little video, something, just a little thought that I had as I was doing my homework last night. But yeah, so if you guys like this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, because it really, really, really helps small channels like mine. Make sure to also subscribe down below. I'm really close to hitting 3K, and I want to hit 3K, and then I'm going to do, like, a celebration live stream for it, and I'll let you guys know when I do that. But yeah, so that's all I have. I don't have anything else to say. Leave a comment on your opinion about female purity, and if you think it's a hoax, if you think virginity is a construct. Let me know your opinions down below. Why society is so obsessed with women? Who knows? The world may never know, to be honest. But yeah, so make sure to stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.